I was getting married. But my boyfriend of 8 years still didn't know. Lately, he had been busy with his new female secretary. They clicked right away and chatted endlessly. To celebrate her birthday, he even ordered a 10-layer cream cake. At the party, they smeared cream everywhere, forgetting that I was severely allergic to it. After being rushed to the hospital, I woke up and agreed to the arranged marriage my family had proposed. Mom wasted no time. As soon as I got back from the hospital and was about to swipe my key card to enter, she sent me dozens of wedding plans to choose from. Scrolling through the options, I stopped at her last message. I knew all along you and Lucas wouldn't last. If he truly wanted to marry you, why would he drag things out for 8 years? It's not too late to realize this. I've already prepared wedding plans for you. The wedding is in 3 days. Take your time packing. No need to rush. So this was all so obvious to everyone else. Yet I was trapped in Lucas's empty promises, unable to let go. Sighing, I sent her a voice message. Mom, pick whatever you think is best. I like them all. Let's keep the wedding simple. I didn't notice when Lucas walked up behind me. When he heard the word wedding, he blurted out in shock. Wedding? What wedding? Just as he tried to peek at my screen. I quickly put my phone away, reached out to grab it, but in the next second, his phone started ringing. The night was so quiet that I could clearly hear a panicked female voice on the other end. Lucas, I just went downstairs to grab something, and I think someone is following me. I'm so scared. I walked around the block, but I still can't shake him off. Lucas's expression changed instantly, filled with concern. Celine, don't worry. Go to a well-lit area. There should be someone on duty at the security station. Stay there, and I'll be there soon. He hung up, completely forgetting about the wedding. Without hesitation, he left me standing there and rushed off into the night. I kept my expression perfectly calm. After he left, I called my aunt to say goodbye. My parents had moved out of town to pursue their careers 10 years ago, and since then I've been living with my aunt. Lucas lived next door, and that was how we met. Later, when my aunt got married and sold her villa to move in with her husband, I didn't want to intrude on her new life, so I temporarily stayed with Lucas. I never expected that temporary stay to last 8 years. When Aunt Mina heard I was leaving to get married, she was shocked. Married to Lucas? Well, that's good. It's been 8 years, so I guess it's about time to settle down. I pressed my lips together and corrected her. Assumption? No. It's an arranged marriage. I don't know the person. She fell silent for a moment, then slowly asked, have you thought this through? I think Lucas really cares about you. I just don't know why he hasn't proposed. Maybe I should talk to him. I gave a small, indifferent smile. No need. It wasn't really a relationship anyway. We never formally got together. It's just been this vague, ambiguous thing for 8 years. If I don't end it now, my whole youth will be gone. Aunt Mina was surprised that we'd lived together for 8 years. Without even defining our relationship, she didn't try to dissuade me further, and said she'd support my decision. Before going to bed, I set a 3-day countdown widget on my phone. The next day, I asked my mom to send some local gifts over, as a thank you to my aunt for her care over the past decade, and as a way to say goodbye. That evening, a truckload of packages finally arrived. I gave the driver directions to my aunt's house, but I didn't expect to run into Lucas downstairs. Celine's delicate figure trailed closely behind him, the two of them, each carrying bags of household supplies from the supermarket. They looked just like a young couple moving in together. Just then, Aunt Mina came down to greet me and saw the scene. She was about to speak up when I interrupted her. Mom's gifts for you have arrived. Be sure to check the expiration dates. Don't let anything go bad. I didn't look at Lucas even once. So this time, he surprisingly took the initiative to explain. Ellie, don't misunderstand. Celine's previous neighborhood wasn't safe, so I found her a new place. I didn't realize your aunt lives here, too. By the way, why did you buy so much stuff? I directed the driver to bring up the deliveries. I replied nonchalantly, you don't need to tell me about your work. My mom bought this stuff. We don't know when we'll be back. So she got a lot. Seeing I hadn't misunderstood, Lucas looked visibly relieved. No problem. The north suburb isn't far. Just let me know anytime you want to come over. He still didn't know I was moving back for good, and I had no plans to tell him. Aunt Mina was going to speak, but seeing how carefully Lucas was looking after Celine, her expression turned grim. The four of us stood there awkwardly until Celine, looking tired, finally broke the silence. Lucas immediately told the driver to pause the delivery, saying they had fewer things and could use the elevator first. Seeing the bags of household items he was carrying, I stepped aside to let them go. Lucas looked briefly surprised, then hurriedly stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, I couldn't help but see a glimpse of my former self and Celine. Back when my aunt first moved, Lucas had been just as attentive, running errands and taking care of me. moving all my things into his home with a smile, saying he was welcoming his future lady of the house. Watching the elevator, Aunt Mina sighed with some regret. Are you sure you don't want me to ask him? You've known each other for so long. It would be a shame to break up over a misunderstanding. I shook my head. No need. There's no misunderstanding between us. He never lets one last overnight. If he hasn't explained, then that's it. Lucas and Celine didn't actually have that much to carry. They could have finished it all in one trip. But even after I delivered the things to my aunt and said my goodbyes, he was still nowhere to be seen. Downstairs, out of courtesy to an old friend, I pulled out my phone and sent him a quick message, asking when he'd be back. Almost immediately, he replied with a voice message. I clicked on it, and Celine's sweet voice came through. Ellie, Lucas is helping me fix the electrical wiring here. This place has never been lived in, so there's a lot to tidy up. You should go home first. Don't let us hold you up. Just as I was about to close the app and call a cab, she sent another message. By the way, Ellie, please don't overthink it. Lucas is just helping me out. He just felt sorry for me, because I'm living all alone in this big city. Thinking of my own parents who had moved far away years ago, I swallowed back my words and closed the chat. After getting into the cab and gazing absent-mindedly out the window, Lucas called Ellie. Why were you so harsh with Celine? She's my subordinate, and I was just helping her find a place to live. The company hasn't arranged accommodation yet. Isn't it normal for me to help? Since when did you start acting like this? Huh. At the birthday party, you were sulking, saying you didn't feel well and wanted to leave. Haven't even addressed that. And now you're causing trouble again. I could hear Celine's soft sobs through the phone. Her demeanor in front of me was nothing like the sweet, innocent junior Lucas described. Taking a deep breath, I finally understood her intentions, but was too tired to defend myself. Yeah, you're right. My bad. I was just asking. Don't worry, I'm already back home. I didn't wait for you. Lucas's questioning tone was silenced by my cool, indifferent response, which seemed to catch in his throat. I ended the call just as the car arrived at my apartment complex. After getting out, I noticed a flood of notifications from Lucas's work group chat. When I opened it, the unread message count was already showing 99 plus. At the top was a photo that Celine had posted of Lucas fixing her electrical wiring and plumbing. Who else is a boss this considerate? She wrote, I'd gladly devote my life to this company. Can I sign a lifetime contract? Below her post were comments from other employees, filled with envy and admiration. I've never seen the boss act like this. Didn't the cleaning ladies say he's a neat freak? Doesn't look like it here. Oh my god, he looks so handsome without his suit. From now on, I'm dreaming about being Mrs. Haskins. Hands off, everyone. This photo was posted by the future Mrs. Haskins.
Napayutofit.
Working is your only destiny. Before he hired Celine, I used to help Lucas out with all these tasks, without expecting anything in return. But after she joined and took over my role, I forgot to leave the group chat. After reading all the replies in the group, I deleted the record and exited the app. Now that I had made my decision to move on, seeing this preview of their life together didn't hurt as much as I thought it might. I recalled the early days when I just started at the company. After graduation, Lucas used to share snippets of my work in the group chat all the time, sneaking photos of me making coffee or updating the schedule. It was obvious to everyone in the office that he liked me. With his love, even the daily grind felt a little sweeter, and his affection brought a spark to the dull work chat. Everything changed once Celine entered the picture. She took over all my responsibilities, and Lucas banned any mention of me in the group. He seemed drawn to her openly and subtly. One of my former colleagues, who had been close to me once, made a harmless comment that Celine wasn't as capable as I'd been. Lucas immediately docked her an entire year's bonus. Later, I secretly transferred her $10,000, hoping to prevent her from impulsively quitting. When I returned to the place I'd called home for 8 years, but never truly belonged to, I started packing up my things. My gaze fell on a thick photo album, filled with memories from the past decade. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I opened it and flipped through each page. Each photo represented a gift Lucas had given me 8 years ago. He told me he'd give me 9,999 surprises before we'd walk down the aisle together. He wanted to win my heart with sincerity, so I'd willingly become his wife. The album, custom made to hold exactly 9,999 photos, now had just one blank page left. But in the end, it was all for nothing. Taking the album downstairs to a quiet, open area, I lit a match and set it ablaze. I watched as each photo burned, turning slowly to ash, burying the last 8 years of my life with it. Lucas arrived to see me standing over the flames, his face drained of color. He rushed over, pushing me aside to try and salvage what he could. But the heat was too intense for him to reach in. Within seconds, his hands turned red from the heat. Furious, he stomped on the burning album, trying to snuff out the flames as they devoured each photo. "What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy? All these memories gone, because of you," he shouted. I struggled to my feet, brushing the dust from my pajamas. The fire cast a warm glow on my face. My voice was ice cold. "It's fine." I opened the album and saw bugs crawling inside, maybe cockroaches. So I burned it. Seeing my calm demeanor, Lucas finally realized he might have overreacted. Taking a deep breath, he softened his tone. "Are you okay?"
"I'm sorry."
I got a little too worked up. "We've been collecting those photos for 10 years. Weren't we going to share them at our wedding? Why did you burn them if they were bugs? You could have waited for me to come back. Or, at least messaged me. I would have taken care of it," he added. I didn't bother looking at him. The man standing before me was no longer the boy who had once promised to protect me forever. "You've been busy with work for ages, so I didn't want to bother you with something so trivial." He stood beside me, gazing sadly at the ashes. This scene couldn't have been more ironic. He was the one who destroyed our 10-year relationship for another woman, yet here he was acting like he still cared. I turned to go back inside, but he mistook my indifference for pouting and pulled me into his arms. The sickly, sweet scent of black opium cologne filled the air, making me sneeze repeatedly. But he didn't let go, seemingly overwhelmed with remorse. "Are you feeling sick?" he asked, his voice tender.
"I'm sorry."
"I know I've been neglecting you lately. Once things settle down, let's retake those photos. All right? We'll replace what was lost. Double it, even if it was before." Hearing these words might have softened me. But after a trip to the ER, and realizing he'd forgotten my severe allergy in favor of another woman, I could no longer pretend. I didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. When he finally released me, I pulled away with resolve and said, "No need to apologize. If you really want to make it up to me, maybe you could throw me a proper birthday party." Due to my cream allergy, I was always missing from my own celebrations. But since I'd be leaving soon, I wanted to experience at least one birthday with him by my side. Surprisingly, he seemed rattled by my simple request. He nodded, but before he could respond further,
His phone rang.
glancing at the screen, he quickly explained, "It's something urgent from work. Don't wait for me tonight. I'll make it up to you, I promise." As he spoke, he was already backing away. By the time he finished, he was meters away, practically running. Actually, I was aware that it was the ringtone exclusively for Celine, but I didn't confront him about his lie. The next morning, people arrived to set up the party, and among them was Celine herself. She claimed to be there to oversee the arrangements, since she designed the setup, but by the end of the day, I noticed that the decorations were just a simpler version of her own birthday party. When the workers left, she sauntered over, a smug smile on her face. "Well, everyone's been hard at work all day. What do you think? Does it suit your taste?" As I looked at her, my gaze darted to the necklace she wore, a piece I had lost. I squinted my eyes as I intoned coldly, "A second-hand setup for a second-hand person. It suits you just fine." Hearing my words, Celine seemed offended, and without another word, she glanced to the side, picked up a crystal ornament, and smashed it to the floor. A shard cut her foot, and she began to cry pitifully. Before I could react, Lucas stormed over and slapped me across the face. "Enough with the tantrums. Celine took the day off to help with your party. And this is how you repay her?" he growled. "If you don't like it, then do it yourself." Without waiting for an explanation, he scooped Celine into his arms and rushed her out. I sat alone in the now lifeless room, the silence around me growing heavy. The next morning, no one had shown up for the party. Well, it was not surprising really. Lucas had been my only friend for these 10 years. When the cake arrived, I opened the box, cut myself a small piece, and stuck a single candle in it. Closing my eyes, I made a simple wish. May we never meet again. I couldn't even eat the cake because of my allergy. When my phone rang, signaling the end of my countdown, I grabbed my suitcase and walked out without looking back. On the way to the airport, I sent Lucas one final message. "Let's end things here. There's no need to keep in touch." I stared at the text message for exactly 3 seconds. The green bubble sat there, stark and final against the black background of my screen. Before the delivered status could even register beneath it, I pressed my thumb against the power button and slid the screen to power off. The screen went black. I popped the SIM card out with the edge of an earring, rolled down the cab window, and let the tiny piece of plastic fall into the rushing wind of the highway. For the first time in 8 years, I took a breath that didn't feel like it was being squeezed through a straw. When the plane touched down in Capital City, the crisp northern air hit my face, smelling of pine and impending rain. My mother was waiting at the arrival's gate. She didn't look like a woman who had just arranged a marriage for her daughter. She looked like a CEO who had successfully orchestrated a hostile takeover. "You're too thin," she noted, bypassing a hug to scrutinize my face. "And your eyes look dead. We'll need to fix that before Friday." "Hello to you too, Mom," I said, a faint smile touching my lips. "Don't give me that attitude. The car is outside." She signaled for her driver to take my single suitcase. "Julian is joining us for dinner tonight. Be on your best behavior. He's not a boy you play games with." Julian. So that was his name. I hadn't even bothered to ask when she sent the wedding plans. The restaurant was an exclusive, softly lit establishment overlooking the city skyline. When we arrived, a man was already waiting at our table. He stood up immediately. Julian was tall, taller than Lucas, with shoulders that carried the distinct posture of someone accustomed to bearing heavy responsibilities. He had sharp, aristocratic features, but his eyes, a deep, striking shade of hazel, held a surprising warmth. He wore a charcoal suit that wasn't flashy, but the cut screamed bespoke. "Mrs. Davis," he greeted my mother with a polite nod, before turning his gaze to me. "And you must be Ellie." "Julian," I replied, offering my hand. His grip was firm but gentle, his skin warm. We sat down, and the waiter immediately brought over menus. "I've taken the liberty of ordering a few appetizers," Julian said, his voice a low, steady baritone that instantly commanded the space. "However, I specifically asked the chef to omit all dairy and cream-based sauces from the entire service tonight. I was informed you have a severe allergy." I froze. I looked at my mother, who simply sipped her water, pretending not to notice my shock. "You remembered that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Julian looked mildly confused by my reaction. "It was in the brief your mother sent over regarding our living arrangements. Medical necessities are the bare minimum of knowing one's partner, aren't they? The bare minimum. 8 years with Lucas, and he had shoved my face into a cream cake. 3 minutes with a stranger, and he had sterilized an entire kitchen for me." I looked down at my napkin, blinking back a sudden, embarrassing sting of tears. "Thank you," I managed to say. Julian's eyes softened, catching the slight tremor in my voice. He didn't push, didn't demand to know why I was emotional. He simply shifted the conversation to the weather, giving me the space to pull myself together. In that moment, looking at this stranger I was supposed to marry in 2 days, I felt the tight, terrified knot in my chest begin to loosen. Chapter 2. The Echo Chamber. Meanwhile, 800 miles away, Lucas stared at his phone. He was sitting on Celine's cheap, mass-produced sofa, watching her apply a bandage to her perfectly fine foot. "Let's end things here. There's no need to keep in touch," he scoffed, tossing the phone onto the coffee table. "Is everything okay, Lucas?" Celine asked, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she looked up through her lashes. "It's just Ellie," Lucas sighed, rubbing his temples. "She's throwing another tantrum. Sent me some dramatic breakup text. She does this when she feels ignored." Celine's eyes gleamed with a predatory light, though she quickly masked it with a look of concern. "Oh no. Is she still mad about the party?" "I feel so awful, Lucas. Maybe I shouldn't have come over to help. I just wanted her to be happy." "Don't blame yourself, Celine. You went out of your way," Lucas said, his tone softening as he looked at her. "Ellie has just been unreasonable lately.
She's spoiled.
She'll ice me out for a day or two, wait for me to grovel, and then she'll be back. I'm not playing her game this time." He stayed at Celine's apartment for another 3 hours, helping her hang curtains and fix a leaky faucet, enjoying the way she looked at him with sheer admiration.
It was intoxicating.
Ellie never looked at him like that anymore. Ellie always looked tired, expecting too much, demanding too much. It was nearly midnight when Lucas finally unlocked the door to his own apartment. The place was dark. "Quiet. Ellie," he called out, flipping the light switch. Silence. He took off his shoes, expecting her to be curled up on the bed, pretending to be asleep. But when he opened the bedroom door, the bed was impeccably made. Frowning, Lucas walked over to her closet. He opened the double doors and froze. Half the hangers were empty. Her winter coats were gone.
Her shoes were gone.
The small, vintage jewelry box that usually sat on her vanity was missing. Panic, sharp and sudden, spiked in his chest, but he forced it down with a nervous laugh. "She went to her aunt's," he muttered to himself. "She packed a bag to prove a point." He pulled out his phone and dialed her number. "The number you have reached is no longer in service." Lucas stared at the screen. "Blocked?" "No, disconnected." His heart began to beat a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He practically ran to the bathroom. Her toothbrush was gone. Her skincare bottles, usually cluttering the marble counter, had vanished. He ran back to the living room and noticed the blank space on the console table by the door. Her spare key card was sitting there, placed perfectly in the center of the tray, right next to the engagement ring he had bought 3 years ago but never found the right time to give her. She hadn't just packed a bag. She was gone. The wedding was nothing like the grand, suffocating spectacles my mother usually favored. True to my request, it was incredibly simple. Just 2 families in a private, historic garden pavilion on the outskirts of the city. I wore a minimalist silk slip dress with a delicate lace veil. No bridesmaids. No elaborate speeches. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Julian turned to me. He didn't rush. He reached out, his long fingers gently lifting the veil over my head. His eyes met mine, calm, steady, anchoring. I know this isn't exactly the fairy tale you might have dreamed of as a girl, Julian whispered, so low only I could hear. But I promise you, Ellie, in this marriage, you will never have to guess where you stand. You have my respect, my loyalty, and my protection. He leaned in and placed a soft, lingering kiss on my forehead, then a brief, gentle one on my lips. It wasn't fueled by burning passion, but by a profound, comforting sincerity. For the first time in a decade, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. I felt solid ground beneath my feet. That night, Julian drove us to his residence, a sprawling, modern estate nestled in the hills. He showed me to a master suite that was twice the size of Lucas's entire apartment. Your space, he said, handing me the key. My room is just across the hall. Take all the time you need, Ellie. We have the rest of our lives to figure this out. I'm not in any rush. He wished me a good night and closed the door behind him. I stood in the middle of the luxurious room, looking at my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror. I was Mrs. Sterling now. The girl who had waited 8 years for a promise that never came was dead. The woman standing here was finally free. 3 months later, Lucas was losing his mind. The apartment was suffocatingly quiet. At first, he had told himself she would come back. After a week, he had gone to Aunt Mina's house, only to find it locked and empty. He had hired a private investigator, but Ellie had practically vanished off the grid. Her mother's family was wealthy and powerful, deeply entrenched in capital city politics, making it impossible for a low-level PI to breach their privacy firewalls. Without Ellie, Lucas's life began to unravel at the seams. He never realized how much she had quietly managed. She used to handle his dietary meal prep, organize his chaotic schedule, and smooth over relations with his most difficult clients. Now, he had Celine. Lucas, I'm so sorry, Celine cried, standing in the middle of his office. She had accidentally CC'd their biggest competitor on a confidential pricing email. I didn't know the system worked like that. You can't be mad at me. I've been working so hard. Lucas stared at her, a vein pulsing in his temple. 6 months ago, her tears would have invoked his protective instincts. Now, they just looked pathetic. Get out, he said, his voice dangerously low. But Lucas. I said get out, Celine, he roared. She flinched, bursting into actual tears, and fled the office. Lucas slumped back in his chair, running his hands over his face. The company was hemorrhaging money. 2 major clients had left, citing a lack of personal touch and administrative competence since Ellie's departure. He missed her. God, he missed her so much it felt like a physical illness. He missed the smell of her shampoo, the quiet way she read books on the balcony, the way she used to anticipate his needs before he even voiced them. He had traded a diamond for a piece of cheap, glittering glass, and the realization was rotting him from the inside out. His phone buzzed. It was an email from the organizers of the National Innovators Gala in Capital City. His company had barely made the cut to be invited this year. It was his last chance to network with the megacorporations and secure a lifeline investor. He had to go. He had to save his company. Capital City was freezing, but the ballroom of the Grand Continental Hotel was radiating heat and opulence. I stood beside Julian, holding a flute of champagne. I wore a deep emerald velvet gown that hugged my curves, my hair swept up in an elegant twist, exposing the vintage diamond collar necklace Julian had gifted me for our 3-month anniversary. Marriage to Julian had been a revelation. We started as polite strangers, but over the months, a deep, magnetic pull had developed between us. He listened to me. He valued my opinions. When I mentioned I wanted to start my own consulting firm, he didn't coddle me or offer to do it for me. He handed me a list of contacts and said, "Show them what you're made of." I was thriving. I was genuinely, entirely happy. Bored, Julian murmured, leaning down so his lips brushed my ear. A little, I confessed, leaning back against his chest. These tech executives take themselves entirely too seriously. Julian chuckled, a rich sound that vibrated against my spine. Give it another hour, Mrs. Sterling. Then I'll whisk you away. Across the room, Lucas was desperately trying to corner a vice president from Apex Industries. He looked exhausted. The sharp, confident aura he used to carry had dulled. Beside him was Celine, wearing a tacky, overly sequined red dress that screamed for attention. Around her neck sat a delicate pearl pendant. My pearl pendant, the one I had lost months ago. I stiffened slightly, my eyes narrowing. Julian, ever perceptive, followed my gaze. An old acquaintance? Julian asked quietly, his hand coming to rest on the small of my back. My ex, I said, my voice remarkably steady. And the woman he replaced me with, she's wearing a necklace that went missing from my vanity right before I left. Julian's eyes turned cold, though his expression remained perfectly pleasant. Is that so? How terribly bold of her. Before we could turn away, Lucas's eyes scanned the room and locked onto me. I saw the exact moment his brain short-circuited. He stopped mid-sentence, dropping his glass. It shattered on the marble floor, but he didn't even look down. He stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. I didn't look away. I didn't hide. I simply took a sip of my champagne, my face an impassive mask. Lucas began pushing through the crowd, completely ignoring the executives he had been groveling to moments before. Celine, looking panicked, scrambled after him. Ellie, Lucas breathed as he reached us. He looked terrible up close. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he had lost weight. Ellie, my God. I've been looking everywhere for you. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? He reached out, instinctively trying to grab my wrist. Before his fingers could even brush my skin, Julian stepped smoothly between us. He didn't raise his hands, but his sheer presence, imposing, icy, and utterly authoritative, made Lucas freeze. I'd suggest keeping your hands to yourself, Julian said, his tone polite but laced with absolute menace. Lucas blinked, finally registering Julian. He sized him up, puffing his chest in a pathetic display of bravado. Who the hell are you? Step aside. I'm talking to my girlfriend. Girlfriend? I laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a genuine sound of amusement. Lucas, we were never officially together, remember? You made sure of that for 8 years. Ellie, stop this, Lucas pleaded, ignoring Julian, his voice cracking. I get it, okay? You're punishing me. You made your point. Celine means nothing to me. She's an idiot. My company is falling apart without you. I'm falling apart. Please just come home. Behind him, Celine gasped, her face turning crimson with humiliation as people nearby began to whisper. Lucas.
How can you say that? She shrilled.
Lucas didn't even look at her. Shut up, Celine. He turned his desperate eyes back to me. I brought the ring, Ellie. I have the ring. We can get married.
Right now.
Just come back. Julian let out a soft, elegant sigh. He reached out and took my left hand, raising it slightly so the massive, flawless, cushion-cut diamond on my ring finger caught the light of the chandeliers. I'm afraid you're a bit late to the altar, Mr. Haskins, Julian said. My wife is already spoken for. Lucas stared at the ring, the color draining from his face until he looked like a corpse. Wife, he stammered, stepping back as if physically struck.
No.
No, that's impossible. You're lying. You did this to get back at me. You overestimate your importance, Lucas, I said coldly. I didn't do anything for you. I did it for myself. You spent 8 years taking me for granted, making me feel like I was crazy for wanting basic respect. You chose cream cake and a secretary over my life. We are done. We have been done since the day I walked out. By the way, Julian interjected, his voice cutting through the tension like a scalpel. He looked directly at Celine, who was trembling. That is a remarkably exquisite vintage pearl pendant you're wearing, Mississippi. Celine swallowed hard, instinctively putting a hand over the necklace. It's mine. A gift. Fascinating, Julian said, his eyes narrowing into a lethal glare. Because that specific piece was commissioned by my mother-in-law in Paris 20 years ago. There isn't another one like it in the world. I happen to have the original authenticity papers in my safe. He took a step toward Celine, who shrank back. I'm sure the capital city police would be very interested to know how my wife's stolen property ended up around her neck. The silence around us was absolute. Several high-profile guests had stopped to watch the spectacle. Lucas looked from Celine to the necklace, his eyes widening in horror. You stole from her? He whispered.
No.
I just found it in the apartment. I thought Ellie threw it away. Celine sobbed, realizing she was entirely cornered. Security, Julian called out quietly. Immediately, 2 massive guards in suits stepped forward from the shadows. Please escort this woman out. And contact the authorities regarding stolen property. My lawyers will be in touch. Celine shrieked, crying hysterically as the guards flanked her, pulling her toward the exit. The high society crowd parted for her like the Red Sea, their faces twisted in disgust. Lucas stood there, completely, utterly broken. His savior complex had been shattered. The woman he threw me away for was a common thief, and the woman he thought he owned was standing before him as the untouchable wife of one of the most powerful men in the room. Ellie, he whispered, tears finally spilling over his eyelashes. Please. I looked at him, feeling absolutely nothing. No anger, no pity, no love. Just the vast, empty indifference of a stranger. Goodbye, Lucas, I said. I turned my back on him. I didn't look back as I walked away, my arm linked through Julian's. News in the business world travels fast. The scene at the gala was the final nail in the coffin for Lucas's company. No investor wanted to touch a CEO who was publicly humiliated and associated with a petty thief. Within 6 months, Haskins Enterprises filed for bankruptcy. I heard from Aunt Mina that Lucas had moved back to our hometown, working a mid-level management job, living in a small apartment alone. Celine had been charged with grand larceny, given a suspended sentence, and blacklisted from every reputable corporate firm in the city. But I didn't dwell on their misery. I was too busy living. A year after our wedding, I launched my consulting firm. Julian was my first client, strictly for the optics, he claimed, but he paid my full retainer with a proud smile. We were sitting on the balcony of our home on our first anniversary. The sky was painted in strokes of violent orange and soft purple. Julian had poured us 2 glasses of sparkling cider, no champagne, as I had recently found out I was pregnant. He came up behind me, wrapping his strong arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured, his hands gently resting over my flat stomach. "About the past," I admitted honestly, "and how terrified I was to marry a stranger." Julian turned me around, his hazel eyes searching mine.
And now?
I reached up, tracing the line of his jaw. The phantom weight of those wasted 8 years was entirely gone, burned away in the ashes of the photo album I had left behind. In its place was a foundation of granite.
Solid. Safe. Real.
Now, I smiled, leaning up to kiss him. "I think letting go was the best thing I ever did."